Good morning, everyone. I hope you're all having a wonderful morning. My name is Robin Rowan, Program Manager for the Northwest Commission's Apex Accelerator. We're going to begin here shortly in a few minutes. I just want to let a few more people in so they can hear this morning's training. We will begin shortly. Thank you so much for your patience. All right, I think we're going to begin. Not seeing any more individuals. Luke, if anyone else comes through, please bring them in from the lobby. I appreciate that help. Good morning again, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. I hope you can all see my slide deck. I believe you should be able to see that. Just want to thank you and welcome you for coming in and joining us this morning to learn about the casting, forging, and machining icon program that is a program that is used by the Defense Logistics Agency to manage their casting, forging, and machining opportunities. This is going to be a great opportunity to learn. I'm excited about learning about this program myself. Wanted to let you know that we have two guest speakers that are presenting this morning, and if you have questions, feel free to enter those in the Q&A. Where we're going to try to keep the questions in the Q&A, and my guest speakers have agreed to answer some of those during the presentation. So we are not going to save questions to the end. I mean, we will have questions at the end, but if you do have a question, I will monitor that Q&A and try to get those questions answered as we go through the program. So we are very, very excited. One of the first things I'm going to do this morning is give you a little bit of a brief overview of what an Apex Accelerator is, just in case some of you out there are not working with your Apex Accelerator. I'll give you a brief overview on that. Somebody who wanted to be here today, who could not make it work in their schedule, was the Defense Logistics Agency, the Casting and Forging Program Manager, Brian Egbert. He called me early this morning, basically almost like early enough where I was just getting out of bed, which was awesome for him to call me and just let me know he felt bad that he could not be here, but he has agreed to present for another. We're going to put together a nationwide casting forging with Icon and with him, and so we'll have an event that's going to be a nationwide program. So if you are interested in hearing from DLA's program manager for casting and forging, then please be on the lookout for those dates in the future. So I will be working with my other Apex accelerators across the nation to put on this event. I want to thank my Apex accelerators here in Pennsylvania for supporting this event and helping us get the news out about this today's webinar. So I'm going to provide you a little bit of an overview again of Apex accelerators, just an intro. It's very, very short intro. Just kind of touch base a little bit of what it is that we do. I am the program manager for the Northwest Commission Apex Accelerator. We are located in the northwest part of Pennsylvania. We cover 8 counties, and most of my colleagues from Pennsylvania are on the call today. Apex Accelerators, we are under the management of the Department of Defense's Office of Small Business Programs. Do not let that name fool you, because we help companies of all shapes and sizes, large, small, and medium. We play a critical role in the department's efforts to identify and engage with a wide range of businesses entering and participating in the defense supply chain. The program provides education and training that all businesses need to participate in to become capable of participating in DoD and other government contracts. So if you are not located in my service region in the 8 counties, here's a QR code. You can actually take your camera of your phone and link it right up to that QR code, and it'll take you right to our Apex Accelerators Department of Defense website, where you can locate your Apex Accelerator. You want to work with the Apex Accelerator that's wherever your headquarters, or maybe your sister company, or whatever company within your organization that is doing DoD work. That is where you'll want to work with that Apex Accelerator that's located in your region. And I have another link here to our national association, NAPEX. It'll also help you find your local Apex Accelerator. Really, so with our mission with the Department of Defense, we are really there to help them increase that defense industrial base. That is a mission that has kind of refocused for us. We support all agencies, federal, state, and local. And one of our main tasks, really, we are really here to bridge that gap between the U.S. suppliers and the government buyers. So we're just there to help these companies bring their products and services to those government buyers. And a government buyer might not be an agency. It may also be a prime contractor who is doing direct work with the government. So we will help with those subcontracting relationships as well. Here is a map that will show you all of where all the Apex accelerators are located across the United States. You'll notice here in the state of Pennsylvania, we have a lot of those dots. That's because we're set up as regional Apex accelerators, where we have every county in Pennsylvania covered with an Apex accelerator, which is really nice. Most of we're held with cooperative agreements with the Department of Defense, and most of those cooperative agreements are set up with local development districts within the region, and some are managed through state universities to help your business conduct business with the government, and we conduct business at no cost. Most of our services are free. So, and trying to get that to move. So here is a map of Pennsylvania Apex accelerators, and you will see the contact information as well for each of those regions. We have 7 cooperative agreements in the state of Pennsylvania. And everyone on the call today will receive a copy of this slide deck, so you can use that to find your Apex accelerator. Apex accelerators, we're really here to help your company create a path to success. Again, we receive some of our money from the state, from the Department of Community and Economic Development. So we also help companies do state work and local work as well. And again, our services are free. The reasons why Apex accelerators are needed it really is to help break down those barriers to entry. There are a lot of things that companies need to go through to do business with the government, whether that is state, local, or federal government. There are a lot of complicated systems and processes in place to get there. We help your company save time and money because we help you to get through those systems faster than it would take you to do on your own. So if you can get back to business and not have to hire someone to do that for you, you're saving time and money. There's a lot of bidding platforms government agencies use to handle their advertising for bid opportunities. Businesses have to pay to get access to those bid documents. So we can help you find those bid documents sometimes in a free space, because sometimes the government actually hires these companies to take care of their bidding processes. So if we can help you, again, save time and money, that is very important for your business to be successful. So we help you with cybersecurity regulations. We'll help you look at your competition, see where they're doing business, and basically just breaking into the market. Will help your company understand how the government buys. Like today, we're going to talk about casting, forging, and machining, how to find those opportunities, help you break down those federal acquisition regulations, all the contract language. There's a lot to government contracting. So again, that's why Apex accelerators are needed. Um, Here's just an overview of just some of our most requested services. But there are so many things that we do. Anything government contracted related, we basically will assist with. If we don't know the answer, we have over 700 colleagues across the nation. I've been doing this for 13 years. I've got a lot of knowledge in my head, but we have some colleagues that have been doing this for 35 years, and some are retired contracting officers. So I call them my phone a friends. I will reach out when I have a question if I don't know the answer. Here again are some of our most requested services. We do a lot of market research. Here at the Northwest Commission Apex Accelerator, we also design a plan of action for our clients from start to finish on what they need to do to get to be successful. We help with all the set aside, the social economic certifications like Woman Owned, 8A program, the Hub Zone, and the Veteran Owned certification. DoD cybersecurity is another very important thing that is going on right now. We are not IT experts, but we understand the regulation, and we will provide you with that training to understand what it is required by the DoD to do business with them when it comes to cybersecurity. And some of you may be familiar with the new CMMC that is just rolling out in contracts this year. So lots of questions for companies with that. Proposal development, we take solicitations and we help companies break down, especially if you're new at putting a proposal together. We will help you piece that, break it apart and piece it back together so that you submit a responsive and responsible proposal to the government. Joint Certification Program, JCP, sometimes known as DD 2345. We are experts in helping companies understand that process, and DoD has released a new portal and within the last few years, and that is something that we help companies get through so you can gain access to technical drawings. And then lastly, but most importantly, we do help with those capability statements that companies are required to do for the government and for prime contractors. So here's my contact information. Again, here's how you get in touch with your Apex Accelerator that's located in your region. And that is all I have for that. I'm going to stop sharing, and I'd like to introduce our guest. Let's see if I can get this to stop sharing. And I am so excited about having our guest on today. We have the director, Sheila Rayburn. She's the director of ICON Operations and program manager of the Non-Ferrous Foundation Society. She came to NFFS after a 30-year career with the Defense Logistics Agency. Following her government career, Sheila established her role as a senior consultant of her own business, Rogers Associates LLC, where she assisted many small businesses obtaining and managing IT government contracts. She also served as the DoD EMAL program manager, now known as FedMAL, and as division chief and business operations manager of the systems integrated J6BC Data Services Office of DLA. Sheila holds a bachelor's degree in business management from George Washington University with the emphasis of supply chain management, logistics, and procurement, as well as a certification in program management and contracting. Our second guest speaker for today is Mike Chiro. Michael serves as the industry liaison to ICON, providing hands-on support to suppliers navigating DLA contracting. He specializes in capture management, supply chain development, and training suppliers in identifying and competing for high-value contracts aligned with their capabilities. I want to thank you both, Sheila and Michael, for joining us today and taking your time to provide us with those details on how DoD uses casting, forging, and machining companies to support its mission and to support the warfighter, and helping our audience understand these resources and to help simplify that procurement process. So without further ado, I'd like to welcome Sheila. She will be our first presenter here today. Sheila, thank you so much for coming in and I believe, I'm not sure if you have anything to share as far as you said you don't have anything to share as a slide, but just presenting. So
Thank you,
Sheila,
Robin.
can you, oh, there you go.
Yeah, thank you very much, Robin. I'm going to share live today. If you would indulge me for a moment. I didn't opt to do um, slide deck. I prefer to do live feed. The icon program is so adaptable. I prefer to do things live. You lose a little bit when you use a slide deck. I think the icon program is so intuitive and user friendly. It has a lot to offer. We started this program initially in an effort to, and I'll give you a little context, in an effort to help with what was already in the DLA Internet bid board for castings. I don't know how many of you are familiar with the bid board, DIBS, but it was very difficult for industry to filter out those castings at the time. It all encompasses everything in the DLA Internet Bid Board, like everything from pens and pencils. It was very difficult for the casting industry to find their niche. So DLA, under the R&D program, as part of the American Metal Casting Consortium, realized that they were missing an opportunity by not allowing the casting industry to find those castings more readily available. It was very difficult, and it became even more difficult when the OEMs um, decided that there were opportunities being missed, and the OEMs decided that there were a lot of opportunities that they were just not going to offer on. Some of the supply chain became fragmented. Over time, this was back in 2012 and 13, the R&D program under DLA saw the fact that they needed to take some action. And so, as part of that consortium, many industry partners under that consortium, one of them being the Non-Ferrous Founder Society, proposed an opportunity by saying, I think we need to take some action. And one of those actions ended up on the R&D table, where it became the Integrated Casting Ordering Network. At the time, it focused on the opportunities for castings alone. Since that time, I came on board in 2017, where we decided that we could expand upon that. But it was a really good opportunity. We were able to filter down to the casting level. We were able to bring in patterns and tooling. Long story short, the actual team, the engineers, along with DLA, went into the foundries and they found the patterns. They started cataloging the patterns. They started building upon what Fliss already identified. A lot of this I'm cutting to the chase, but there were a lot of integrated processes involved, a lot of IT involved, a lot of database infrastructure was pulled in. A lot of people were involved, and lo and behold, we came up with a valuable tooling capacity to allow industry, especially small businesses. A lot of times, the mom and pops out there decided that, this is really hard for us. We're a small operation. We have specific, unique capabilities. We're not big like the OEMs, the Honeywells, the Boeings, the Parker Hannifins, all these big guys specialized. They had bigger, robust capabilities. They had the complete set, the machining. They had the complete operations. And I'm kind of summarizing some of that capability. But they had their own niche. They had their own resources, their approved sources, the capabilities in their operations didn't include some of these people who had small business capabilities, but they didn't have the bandwidth to take on some of the government opportunities. So NIFs in this case, I'm focusing on NIFs at this time. There was FIA, the NTMA, the forging industry, the machine shops, they all had their associations catering to their own industry representation at the time. And the non-ferrous foundry all obviously took care of the non-ferrous metals and the associations associated with that. And we had our niche as well. And we took care of the foundries and brought them into the database in the infrastructure, and it was going very well. And then we proposed to DLA, well, let's expand that. And here we are today with what you're going to see. It grew and it grew and it expanded, and DLA saw the success of how we expanded. And right now we're launching a campaign where we're bringing in forging. So that's a little bit of the background. So can everyone see my screen okay? I assume you can
Yes.
see, okay,
Yes, we can.
this is what we have today. Obviously, we have a media presence. We have an about, we have contact information, we have our support tab. When anyone comes into this screen, this is what you're going to see. This is your landing page. We also have new business opportunities identified. We give a little bit of the comprehensive data, tailored solutions. We talk about the portal, which is what I basically give you. We identify information about the drawings, the C folders. You have to have some of that background, which Robin alluded to for drawings, you know, the CMMC. We talk about some of that. There is prep work that has to be done in order to really dig deep into like our ITAR certifications. You know, you have to have your ability to go in and look at your drawings. You have to have JCP. We do talk about that, which is also what the Apex accelerators provide as well. We get a lot of those questions and we do help them along the way, but that's really not the mission of the Integrated Casting Order Network. So what we do is we allow them obviously to register. We have three, it's role-based. We have three specific areas. The organization comes in and they identify themselves. The first person who registers an icon becomes the org admin. The org admin can add as many users as they deem necessary to run the portal on behalf of that organization. The industry user falls underneath that org admin. And then we also have a separate component where Brian Egbert, any government user, we have a separate area for the government buyers who perform research, who goes in and looks for different organizations when there's a broken supply chain, for example. The government buyer goes in and does research, and I'll talk a little bit more about that as we move along. I'm going to go ahead and log in because I want to show you some things. I'm not going to go through the registration. That's pretty self-explanatory. But I'm going to go ahead and log in. I'm a super user, but I'm going to go ahead and log in and show you the typical process and identify and cut to the chase to where really the rubber meets the road on some of these things. As we move along, this is the screen. Once a person comes in and logs in, they'll get an email. They'll set up their user ID and password. Their email becomes their ID. They'll get an email to set their own password. They can also reset their password. They'll get a drop-down menu over here. I obviously have everything because I'm the super admin. Your drop-down menu, I'll talk about these ancillary components as we move along. But the first portion that I want to show you is your org admin. You will be the org admin person. Now, the person that I identified first and foremost is the common admin. That is a person who controls this side of the menu. This is key and important to any organization when they register an icon. They can add a user, they can edit users, they identify the demographics, which is your core information that auto-populates based on when you register. This is information that we can change and update with you. Mine is hard-coded, obviously, because I've already registered. Update your supplier profile. This is very important, and this ties directly to the supplier capabilities that I'm going to talk about next. This is important. This is the information, and I've got some of this auto-populated already. What I need to identify to everyone in this training is to say, you need to identify as an industry user who you are, what your profile is, what your capabilities are. This is key because if a buyer goes in and wants to identify you, look for you, if there's a broken supply chain, I want to know who you are. I want to know what you are capable of, who you are, what your minority is. If I have a specific set aside and I have a broken supply chain and I have a rated order, I need to be able to go and find you up here in supplier capabilities, but I won't find you if you don't fully populate this section of your industry, who you are, what your certifications are, because that drives how I can locate you, how I can get you on a proposal, what I can send to you, what you're going to fill out, how valuable you are to the government. This is your capabilities. Now, obviously, NIFS, and I'm using my profile, doesn't have any applicability to this, but I'm showing you what is important here just so you get an idea of what these capabilities are. Who am I approved source for? If I'm looking for a BAE Systems person, a Bell helicopter, a Boeing, I need to know what you are when I come into ICON. I'm going to look for you. I need you to fill this out. Your secondary operations, your federal classifications, these are all important. I tell industry, do not sprint, do not miss this. Be sure to let government know what your capabilities are. Or another industry, if you're going to partner, there may be a possibility that you don't want to be a prime on a contract, but you have some capability. There may be a teaming arrangement. You may want to be a subset. You may want to allow a prime to know you exist. You may want to work with a partnership and let a prime go to the government side and do all the government first article testing, deal with the paperwork, but you want to partner with them and do the machining. You may partner with them and do part of the work, but you don't want to be the prime. They won't find you if you don't fill all this out. Let them know what materials you have, what your capacity is, what your full credibility is. Fill out these drop-down menus. Fill out your material list. Fill out your composites, all of your details, all of the different variations. That way, someone that may be interested in working with you will find you when we get into the supplier capability section. So I tell people, be sure that you fill this out under your org admin section. You own this. This is your profile. The next thing that's key to the solicitation section, your proposal review, is your bid match settings. This is where you are going to define what's important to you, what solicitations you want to see in your inbox. This goes back to what I said earlier about the DLA Internet Bid Board being so full that you couldn't filter it down far enough. Here are your filters. Here is where I have identified I only want to see materials for solicitations that have aluminum and steel. That's my niche. My method, investment castings and sand castings. I only want to see those solicitations that I'm interested in the solicitation inbox. So I've identified that. Now let's go over and look at the solicitation inbox. Now, if I know, now we know that there are some industries out there that already know, for example, Danco Arlington, they know what NSNs they already receive awards on. They don't want to see anything else but those NSNs. They can upload a list of NSNs that they want to see in their inbox. They don't want to see anything else by material. They only want to list NSNs. They can do that here, and that's what they do. They're one of the many that go in and just see solicitations by NSNs. We allow that here as well. So I've identified my material method. I'm going to go over here now and I'm going to pull up my solicitations. Do that here twice. Go in here, pull up my solicitations. Now here's my inbox. This is my unique inbox. Now don't be discouraged by all of this. This is a running total of solicitations that DLA has put out. But over here, I see all of these tabs. These are my tabs. And over here, I see materials and methods, aluminum sand casting. I'm getting some unspecified, which is fine. I'm able to see all of these dates. These are the dates. These are the solicitations. I give the close date, the open, the NSN, the last award date. If I had a part number, for example, if this solicitation I offered on it before and I was successful, the part number that I had originally had for that solicitation would show up here. This is the tooling information. If I had needed to look up a pattern, I would see that here. This is the tooling. You'll see public and you'll see private. Some of the industry does not want their pattern information known, but I see a cage. It would be private or public. If I'm a first time, for example, industry, and I decide that I may want to offer on this solicitation, I look at this cage, his information for that pattern is visible, public. I can identify that. I can click on that and I can get a hold of that guy and we can work out arrangements where I can use his pattern. It tells me the quantity. It gives me the estimated value. It tells me that not only are they ordering 425 right now, they're going to order another 1,164. That may be something I'm interested in. It is a casting. It's also a casting that's suitable for a second subsequent buy, and complete information is available. Now, I'm obviously going to have to do some more research, but this is my inbox. I'm going to look at that, and it may or may not be something I'm interested in, but I can click on this solicitation. I have all the FLIS data at my fingertips. I don't see a drawing on this right now, but what I can do is I can go in here and I can click on that NSN and I can copy that NSN. I can go up here and take a look at this and I can paste that NSN in here and I can say to myself, well, I want to do some more research. I can say to myself, well, this company had it before. Let's take a look at this company and see what history's out there. I may want to get a hold of this guy. Elkhart Brass had this before. And I may want to dig deeper and I may want to contact this guy. I may want to send him an RFQ. I might want to partner with this guy. He's also an ICON member. So we have some history with this company, which is a good thing. I can look at his capabilities. It's a small business. He does sand casting. He does low volume. I can find out some of his secondary information. I can look at his procurement history. I can find out dollar value. I can do market research with this guy. I can look at some of his other information. And if I'm a government buyer, if there's notes in here, I would see this information if there's notes. Now, if I'm an industry user, I won't see these notes. But a buyer, if there's notes about this, I would see notes if I'm a government buyer. If there's negative information or if there's positive information, a government buyer would see information here. So that's another good information piece. I can see item
So
details.
Sheila, I was just wanted to clarify that. So if that company had like a past performance that did not go well, would that show up in there?
That would show up in there if a government person added it.
Okay,
But it would only be visible to a government person.
government person. Okay.
Right. Right. I would, as a government ICON staff, I would see it, but I would be sworn to secrecy. It wouldn't be anything that I would divulge.
Right.
It would be
Thank
under
you.
my NDA. I have an NDA with the government.
Thank you so much for that clarification.
Yeah. But I want you to see that that is available to government only. Okay. So anyway, I have all this FLIS data. I have item detail data. We have product tooling information here. We have part number detail information here. We have all that FLIS data, all the weapon system data, characteristics data, anything that would be necessary to help someone put together a proposal, to help determine if they want to put together a proposal. Because many times that is not always available to especially a first-time small business trying to get into the market space of the government. They may not have that full capacity, but if they're partnering, a lot of this detail is important. They may want to know, how far do I need to go to get into the government space? What is the information I need? And Mike will go into that detail as well when he talks about it. So a lot of this is very important. Now, from another standpoint, I'm looking at my solicitation view and I'm going, okay, what else do I need to know about these flagged items in my matched information? So I can go as far as I need to go. I've got 15 pages here with a lot of tooling available. I've got some in to be quoted. I've got some in process. I mean, this is my inbox. I can manipulate this around. I can move these around in any way that I need to. I've got my identification here of what might be possible. I've got some that I may not ever want to work on because it's just not my niche. I've identified these. Basically, these are available to me based on my bid match settings. I can change it at any time. Right now, I've got 292 solicitations available to me that are in the castings arena. Now, these are specific to castings, but they're also coming into line with some of machining as well. We've got some machining identifiers out there that we're putting in. We've also are bringing in forging. I haven't identified the forging yet because those are still in a database that we haven't opened up yet, because that is currently our new niche, our new market. Those will be available in October of 2025. So there's a lot of new stuff going on. The item search is also good. I can put in a cage, say I want to know a specific cage code. And I want to know what that cage code has been doing, what kind of NSN that cage code is doing. I can look at part numbers under that cage code. Say I'm looking for a specific cage code and part number for Danko Arlington. I can look at all of his history. I can look at everything that's in FLIS, his procurement history. I can drill down into anything that's going on with that cage code. We give you all the particular history. I can send him an RFQ. Say I'm interested in something, I can create a new RFQ for that NSN. I can populate any of the information that I have for him. It automatically will default to that company. I can save it. I can disregard it. I can submit it. I can include an NDA. I can upload any kind of attachments. I can save it for later. I can go back. I can also go into my message center. Anything, this is an inline icon message center that you own. If you want to send a message to anyone that's in icon, you can create a new message. Anybody that's in icon, you can send them a message. You can talk internally. You never have to leave icon. Likewise, if you're working with someone in the contract center, we have all these processes where you send an RFQ, or you receive an RFQ from someone, you submit, you get an award. All of that happens in your own personal contract management system. You have that all available to you at your fingertips. You can manage, if you have an industry that has tooling. If you upload tooling, you have a tooling management process that you manage here. If you want to upload tooling into Icon, you can add tooling, you can add it individually, you can add it in bulk, you can download it. It's all right here. I don't have but just a couple under NIFs. Obviously, I'm not going to upload tooling, but this is what it would look like. You can search your own tooling. You can change it. If you're interested in looking for tooling, you can put in a finished part number and it will bring up any of the tooling that's located. This is where you would do it. You can do items of stock. If there's some that have stock on hand, this is where you can locate it. You can look up anything by a part and you'll get a lot of information by just a part description. And this is going to bring back a lot, so it's going to take a minute because there's a lot out there by type. I probably shouldn't have done that one because there's a lot out there. Oops. I went back. That was a big one. That pipe is big. But you can do a description. You can search by procurement history only. You can do items with tooling only. This is a very intuitive. It gives you the company. It tells you that it's publicly available. It gives you the NSN. This is very handy for the buyers. I know the government buyers use this a lot when they have a supply chain item that's hard to fill or a rated order. A lot of times they have a critical item that they need to fill. They'll come into Icon and they'll search for items. I know when they have a user request assistance, an item will come to the table for a buyer. I know Mike gets a lot of these sometimes where an item will be available, but they don't know where the tooling's at. The product specialist or the buyer will get involved and they'll be looking for the pattern. They can't find tooling. They come into Icon and they look for the tooling. There's a lot of opportunity where they put in what's called a assistance request. That'll hit my desk or Brian Egbert's desk, and we'll help them find the tooling because they've got the award and they've got a short turnaround time to get the first article test approved and things like that. They use Icon to help fill that part of the requirement. So Icon is used for many, many different variables to fill that and help them with that process. Now, let's talk a little bit about supplier capabilities. I told you earlier that it's very important to fill out your profile, and that's where this comes into play. You'll see up here we have 470 suppliers who filled out their profile. This is very useful to DLA and DOD. We do have the industrial-based DOD side using this a lot. And it's going to even grow as we add all the FIA industry into this. What you can do is you can do many types of searches. And if you don't know what you're looking for, you may just want to look for forging. And I hit that, and this identifies 31 suppliers who's provided their forging industry profile. And they've identified that they're not only a caster, but they also have forging in their profile. You can also identify a more fine-tuned profile. You can identify, maybe you're looking for a specific alloy, or you're looking for a specific approved source. You may be looking for a specific, and this is narrowed down because I'm looking for forgers, and that's why this is smaller. You may be looking for a core process for those forgers. So you can use this to narrow down your search. I'm looking for a forger that does iron, so that narrowed it down to 3. It just depends on what you're looking for. I may be looking for a specific NAICS code, and that NAICS code narrows it down to this focus area here. And then again, you may not even want to narrow it down to forgers. You may just want to narrow it down by capability. And then again, it will narrow down your search to more NAICS codes or more material types. It just depends on what the nature of the search is and who you are. If you're an industry type, you're going to be able to filter because you've got the proposal. You may be looking at something more specific. If you're a government user, you may have a rated order and you may need to focus specifically to that rated order, that critical item. You may need to get someone right away. Those are the types of things. The supplier capabilities database is used every day by the government. Any questions so far? I seem to be going through this rather quickly.
Sheila, I don't have any questions yet in the Q&A. I thought maybe we'd have some questions already. So feel free to put those in the Q&A and we will answer them as we go along. Thank you, Sheila.
Okay.
This is great information.
We do have a lot of detail in here. For example, I just did a search on machine shops. I brought up 6 machine shops. If you're looking for a machine shop to partner with, this is where you go. The supplier capabilities is a very valuable tool to industry. These guys are partnering consistently. They're sending out requests. They're bringing people together. This has been a very valuable tool. Small businesses have told us over and over that they may have never been able to get a footprint in even near the government space because they are so small. We have industry users coming on. We added 64 new businesses into this tool this year. That's more than we've ever added because they see the value in coming into Icon where they never saw the value before. These are small businesses. These are businesses that never saw the value before because they didn't think they fit. But they do fit, and they didn't see that they could ever have a space even in their smallest remote area, because they just didn't see the niche. They didn't think they had an opportunity because of all the paperwork, because of the ITAR, because of the JCP. Well, now they see that they don't have to have all that. They let the bigger companies handle the first article test. They let the bigger companies deal with the government paperwork, which is great. And they don't have the relationship with the OEM. Well, that's okay. The OEM have the sources, the approved sources. The approved sources let the small businesses come in and do the work because they're registered in Icon, and the smaller companies get into Icon. Now, there's another facet of who uses Icon. They're called other. They're suppliers. They're people who use Icon for research, for marketing. They come into Icon and they find a niche where they can identify with the industry, and people somewhat like Valor Group, which is where Mike Chiro, my liaison person, comes into play. He can use this to help promote other businesses. This is a really valuable tool in that arena. People who may have never wanted to do business with the government. I heard that I was a government contracting officer for 20 years. I specialized in hazardous waste disposal. But I heard when I first came on board all of the horror stories. I can't do business with the government. It's too complicated. I don't understand the paperwork and so on. But I started using my background to help them understand that there is a way. And that quickly grew into the capability of where we are today. We help them understand that with this tool, with the research, with the patience, that all things are possible. I think Apex contributes greatly to that as well.
Yes,
Um,
Sheila, I just
yeah,
I just realized there are questions in the Q&A that for some reason I didn't get a notice that they were there. So we do have a few questions for you if you're
certainly.
if you're ready to take that. Um,
Absolutely.
yeah, so Michael wants to know, is this only for casting or is it for machined, is machining included?
It's machining, it's forging, it's casting, and it's other.
Okay, cool. Maria has a question. Are there opportunities to offer capabilities in reverse engineered hog out alternatives to casting forging that may be less attractive to the casting forging houses?
Yes, absolutely. As a matter of fact, we just received this year a contract from DLA to add the hog out capabilities. The uniqueness about that is DLA originally did not identify solicitations with hog out capabilities. So we've taken a different approach. We've gone to the suppliers directly and or industry directly and asked them to provide us what their hog out capabilities are. And we're reversing that and adding that to Icon and identifying that as a capability. And so when that is a capability, the government now has the ability to say, I need a hog out industry partner. And so now they can go into the supplier capabilities and locate that hog out industry user. And then
Thank
they
you.
can automatically provide them the proposal.
Very good.
Does
Thank
that
you.
answer the question?
I believe so. Maria, let us know if that you need more information on that. Andrew wants to know, she said, yes, thank you. Andrew wants to know, would precision grinding fall under that machining selection, or will that be broken into a separate category?
Yes, and both. We're going to
Okay.
address it from both angles.
Okay. I do believe I have some questions in the chat as well, and I want to thank everyone for letting me know that there were questions in the Q&A. I have no clue why I did not see that. Dell wants to know, are manufacturers aware of ICON, or should we be actively promoting this when we do business outreach? Dell, this is the reason we're having this training today. We really want to get this out to our manufacturing companies. If you weren't on the call earlier, we are going to also conduct a nationwide event with our Apex accelerators across the nation, and we will have DLA on there as well. That will be in the near future here, so keep an eye on that for another training. Today's session is being recorded as well, and we will provide that to anyone who's on the call today. Anything you want to add to that, Sheila, about our manufacturers aware of ICON, and should we be actively promoting this?
Yes, we have a customer facing, to answer the question, yes, industry is becoming more and more aware. Like I said, we've grown by leaps and bounds, adding more industry partners. But the more we have a customer facing person on board at NIFS who is out there in promoting ICON every day. So yes, the more we get out there, the better off we are. We want to promote it to manufacturing. We want them to understand it's available to them and that this tool is a very viable opportunity if they're interested in getting into the market space for the government. And that's across DoD, not just DLA.
Thank you. James wants to know, are raw material suppliers able to use this system to supply manufacturers?
Yes.
Very cool. And then we have one last question here. Lee wants to know, can users see activity on the interest in their profile? Can users see activity on the interested in their profile? I think that's what he meant.
Yeah, we have not built that capability yet, but we do have it in our infrastructure planning. They should be able to see who's looking at them if that's what he's asking.
I think that's what he's asking.
Yeah, we want them to see who's interested in their process and who's interested in their profile. So yes, that is on the radar.
Okay. Yes. Oh, that's great. Okay. Yeah. I think that's all the questions for now, Sheila. Thank you.
Very good, very good. Well, I've covered everything that is applicable at this point in time. I would like to pass this over. This is a good segue into Mike. So now here's where it goes. You've formulated your process. You've logged in. You've gotten a handle on how to operate inside of ICON. You know where you're at. You have your niche of solicitations in your inbox. You know how to do research. Now, what do I do from here? Now you're going to look at what the industry profile is. Where do I go from here? Mike Chiro will give you that industry next step, and I will stop sharing, and Mike will give you the industry next step, which is some of your questions.
Hey, everybody.
Good
Do you
morning,
mind
Michael.
if I circle back to a couple of the questions?
Yes, go ahead, Mike. I'm sorry. I should have just chimed in.
No problem. Let me see where that question just was. Regarding hogouts, what I think you want to look at specifically is that, generally speaking, with parts that are casted or forged, you're going to have to find in the technical data package that it's listed as an alternate method of manufacturing. Right? If the drawing states that only a casting or forging spec is listed as the process you can use, then that is the only process you can use, except bidding with exception or submitting a request for variance. But when you find parts that have several methods of manufacturing, specifically in the small arms industry, you'll find parts could be cast, forged, or machined. What you're really looking to understand is, what is the most cost-effective strategy moving forward? if I'm making thousands and thousands of parts, it's likely that a casting or a forging will be more effective because you're not having chips on the floor from your hog out. Your process will be faster. In smaller quantities or more complex operations, you might use a billet or a hog out. So the answer is yes, but be very mindful of the quantity being offered on that contract, as well as what it looks like is going to be purchased in the future. And that will probably tell you which method is going to be the most effective to win. In terms of grinding, I would say you're rarely going to find opportunities solely set up on grinding. And so I would specialize or utilize the supply chain program inside of Icon to identify suppliers who are winning government contracts that are doing manufactured or cast and forged parts and see if you can support their operations. Many machine shops, cast and forging houses do not have grinding capabilities in house, so it's generally an outside process. I'm going to look at this from a bridged perspective. Outside of supporting Icon, we are defense manufacturers representative, and we effectively scan the cast forging machine and fabrication market across DoD, and we identify worthy, winnable, and as close to apples scenarios when trying to compete in the open market. So if you guys could really quick in the chat, could you identify if you are industry, as in you are a supplier, you are a manufacturer, a casting, a forging house, and then if you are Apex or government, I just want to make sure I look at this and cover both perspectives.
Mike, I think we have a little bit of everyone, but we have yeah.
Is it a good mix? Okay.
Yeah, it's a good mix. But if you want to put that in there, feel free. That'd be nice to hear what people have to say.
Okay, so I guess what I would think is most of you are going to be wondering, okay, I make parts. Where do I find them? Who buys them? Where should I go? And I'm going to just kick right off from there. So Icon is currently encompassing casting and forging is coming in too. And so what you guys want to start looking at as suppliers and what Apex people want to look at or government people want to look at when evaluating suppliers to steer them towards the right opportunities and the right applications for items that use those type of capabilities, you're going to want to break it down into the processes. Right. And as listed on Icon, you'll see that you can search for parts that are sand casted, investment casted, centrifugal, die, and of a wide array of forging. Now, you're effectively going to find that most customers are going to be able to produce 1, 2, maybe 3 different materials. And so you're going to be listed or, stuck in that specific niche. And then the next biggest question is how big, how heavy, and how complex are my parts? The better you know about what your capabilities are, the easier it is for you to tailor what type of weapon systems, applications, and what services are buying those types of items. So I'm going to give you guys like a high level overview of how we look at a supplier's capabilities and then steer them to segments of the market that have the highest chance of overlap for them to find opportunities that they're currently well suited to go after, or with a little bit of supply chain development could be well structured to compete in that specific market. I think the hardest thing a lot of people do is they spread a massively wide web and they realize there's so many exceptions to the rule, so many a la carte requirements that it's just extremely difficult to try to manage the specialized nature of this particular industry. So you really want to stay in a lane that already suits you. So when I'm looking at a supplier, the first thing I'm asking, what materials do you make? How big and complex are your parts? Do you machine your own parts, or do you have a supplier locally or that you trust that can machine your cast or forged items? Do you do non-destructive testing? Do you have that supplier capability around you? What quality management systems do you have? Are you ISO 9001? Are you AS 9100? Do you have medical certifications? What type of supply chain do you have local to you? Are these guys good with coatings? Is it phosphate, black oxide? Are you doing chrome? Is it chem film? What kind of heat treatments can you do or around you? Passivation, what kind of paint? Can you do assembly? Can you weld your parts? what you're going to find is the more robust your supply chain, the bigger in scope of type of requirements you can go after. The challenge for a lot of casting and forging houses is that generally those parts need to be machined, might need to be assembled. And so you're rarely selling rough castings or forgings directly to DLA or DoD. And so if you don't machine your own parts, it's imperative that you have somebody around you who knows how to produce and finish those parts for you. And depending on the applications that you work in, if it's small arms, for example, let's say weapon systems under 50 caliber, you're going to find that most of those parts are black anodized or phosphate coated. There's a lot of heat treatments. There's a lot of mag particle testing. And so once you start to understand what materials you can produce in certain complexity and sizes, you can start narrowing down on the outside processes that you need to take these parts completely to the finish line. The next kind of structure of what you want to look at is, okay, I know what kind of parts I make. I know what kind of programs and services I need around me. What type of contract vehicles am I after? Am I doing small piece part orders? Am I doing prototyping? Well, that's going to be low volume, high mix for the most part. You're going to start to see that get in the in between when you start talking about contract manufacturers. And then generally, you're going to have to look at the sustainability of it. And when you look at Serva and you try to do your forecasting, it's difficult for you to accurately assume that's exactly when these things are going to be solicited. And the challenge is that casted and forging parts require molds and tools, and it's very time consuming, right? And so these things take a lot of time to produce your parts. So sometimes when you're looking at what's projected to be solicited in the future, may have already been obligated against something else, but it's in purgatory while they're developing the part. So just bear in mind some of that. I typically take the procurement history as the closest thing to the Bible of determining what the frequency of order and the quantities related to that. If you're looking at if you're a high volume shop and you don't want to be doing a lot of turnovers, you don't want to be developing a lot of molds and tools and dealing with all that testing, well, then you're going to be more at the program level and you're going to want to be looking at long-term contracts. So your long-term contracts are generally going to be RFPs. Now, RFQs will be generally a 250K deal or less. That's the SAT threshold. So those could be long-term contracts, right? And so you're going to deal with anything between a 2 to a 5 year, a 3 year plus 2 year, but those are going to have the highest implication of repeatability over a guaranteed period of time for you to get your processes matured, get efficient, and start becoming more effective to earn more money over time. When you look at it on the flip side, you have to consider, if you're looking at 3 or 4 part contracts, that you might scrap a part. And knowing that the cost of NRE, non-recurring engineering expenses, is prohibitive, I kind of look at it like as a general baseline. A tooling for or a mold for a part the size of a baseball could be anywhere from $7,500 to $15,000. And if you skeletonized it and made it really fancy and cool, that could be $20,000 to $30,000. If you make a part the size of a football, it could be $20,000 to $40,000. If it was very complicated, it could be $50,000 to $70,000, and so on and so forth. So you have to bear in mind that you have to find a way to cover those costs, which are generally going to be in your first article line, right? Because your contract with the first article is going to give you that room to put those costs. But just bear in mind, if you're doing a part that has 3 or 4 or 5 units, you don't have a lot of room to make mistakes. So just keep in mind, if there's concerns with the quality, that you're giving yourself some room in case you have to scrap a part or two. So you're looking at it like, okay, I'm a casting and forging house. I do parts in material and aluminum. We make parts that are up to 36 inches and 40 pounds in weight. We can chrome plate. We can phosphate coat. We like parts that generally have quantities of 100 to 500 pieces. We prefer to play in contracts in the $100,000 to $600,000 range. Where do I find that? Who buys that stuff? So I'm going to give you like a simplified, this is just oversimplified, but this is a simplified way of saying across these casting and forging processes with specific materials, where am I generally going to find those being used in specific applications so that I can target on my searches and icon to find those types of parts and ultimately build relationships with the services so that I can access other contract opportunities outside of aftermarket spares or new product development. I would say, generally speaking, when you look at sand casted parts, they're going to be larger, they're going to be heavier. They're not really known for super tight tolerances. They're not known for being super fine finished parts. These are generally structural components or large bodies or housings or things that you'll find in a power system. So I would say if you're looking at the Army contracts managed by DLA, you should be looking at tank applications, joint light tactical vehicles. You should be looking at housings for large weapon systems, let's say 20 millimeters and up. You should be looking at things for howitzers. You should be looking at Navy requirements that aren't outside and exposed to the water and the salt. These are going to be inside an amphibious vehicle. These are the areas that you're going to find the highest match if you are a sandcaster and you do aluminum and steel. That's going to be the most common area where you're going to find that. If you're doing copper, brass, or specialty Navy alloys as a sandcaster, it's likely that amphibious vehicles is going to be your domain, or anything with electrical or thermal property requirements. So power systems to that effect. So NavAir, NavSup, Nav Warfare, anything that is supporting those weapon systems. And mind you, these are all notified on ICON. And so if you're looking at the weapon system designator code and you're like, oh, this goes on a Berkeley, this goes on a specific destroyer. Okay, maybe I can allude that this particular part is something that I can do. If you're an investment casting house, it's likely that most shops are sub 36 inches and they're sub 40 pounds. These are generally aerospace parts. You're going to find that a lot of these customers are AS 9100. And so you're going to be looking for things that have relatively complex geometry. And so you're going to be looking at things that go in aircrafts, things that go in weapon systems, things that are in missile defense. These can be tricky components that would generally be cost prohibitive to do a hog out because you have a ton of features. It may be asymmetrical in shape. And so you're not going to have that material waste than if you bought a large piece of billet and carved off 60% of the material. So I would say looking at Air Force, looking at Army, looking at some missile defense, and all of these can be easily managed by DLA based on its weapon system. I say this because it's difficult to allude to what is the material makeup of a part solely by assessing its nomenclature, because the technical characteristics that are often offered are not really giving you a manufacturer's recipe, if you will. It may allude to the material or its rough size and scope, but you have really no idea what's involved. And so you're trying to use these details to infer to the best of your ability to zero in things that appear to have the most hits based on your capabilities. If you're looking at die casted parts, I would say anecdotally, it's very difficult to find these opportunities in the spares market because die castings generally are set up for high efficiency, long-term running parts, and DLA deals are not mostly structured like that. Your best opportunity to find die casted opportunities are going to be direct with the services and often at the program level or in the private industry serving those OEMs who have the massive multi-billion dollar long-term contracts. But keep that in mind when looking at die casted parts. Centrifugal casting, these are going to be tons of piston rings. These are going to be bomb housings for all-purpose bombs. These are going to be things in turbines and engines and power systems. These are going to be things that are very difficult to machine, but this specific casting process and capability is really going to shine in those domains. I would say you're going to see this a lot in Navy requirements, Air Force, and some gun systems. Forgings, I think, are pretty straightforward. These are going to be high durable, high wear, high stress components. I would say you're going to find a lot in the Army, ground tactical vehicles. These are going to be structural components, engine components, weapon system components, things that are going to take high stress. And I think it's important for industry to look at it as, if I understand that I make this material part to this particular complexity and geometry, what exists in the market or in the military services for items like that? So if you know what kind of parts you make, well, just visually speaking, what kind of parts look like that? And then I think that's where you should zero in on the weapon systems that you should go and determine if you can be a competitive bidder in that market. So hopefully this gives you a high level understanding of where these parts are generally found, what they're mostly set up to do, so that suppliers kind of can start honing in on the market of what bid opportunities they should look at a little more closely. I would say when you're analyzing a contract opportunity, so let's say we understand who we are, what we can do, the suppliers around us. Now I found a bid. And what are the considerations I should make when determining if I should bid this? I think the first challenge is non-recurring engineering expenses. As I noted before, you could have anywhere from $10,000 to $70,000 to develop your first article. And anecdotally, I see that as 120 to 200 days lead after receipt of award. So you're out that money for the first 120 to 200 days, plus the government review of your part, whether that be a contractor first article test or a government first article test, which generally has a longer review period. And so you have to be aware that the government does not prepay or give deposits on your first article money for your NRE. You're going to have to cash flow that. Now, if you have a machine shop or another supplier serving as at the prime contractor, you could request that they give you some type of deposit. But unlike the private industry, you are not going to be prepaid any sort of deposit for your first article. So you should be putting that in your first article line, all one-time non-recurring engineering expenses to develop a production grade process. All of that cost should go in your first article line.
Hey,
When I think
Michael,
about,
I'm s-
yeah,
I'm sorry to interrupt you. I just want to find out your presentation is wonderful, and someone wants to know, will you be able we will be able to get the slides for your presentation that I can send out to everyone.
sure,
Okay, I appreciate that. Thank you.
no problem. So when you're thinking about first articles, I got to look at it from a competitive perspective. If I'm competing against other people, I want apples to apples competition. I don't want to go through a complex bid and put 50, 60 hours when I got a shop rate of $150 an hour, spend $1,000 just to find out I was never even going to have a chance. And so, how do I reduce wasting time, frustration, and losing my desire to compete in this market? Well, you want to be able to infer what's going on in the competition as quickly as possible before you dig into the material requirements. Outside of as a liaison, like I said, the first things that we do when bringing a deal to a supplier is we look for the contract to be broken or difficult to analyze in an apples to apples perspective. Then we go to the supplier and go, hey, this contract looks wonderful. Do you materially agree based on this procurement history and who we're going after? And I think that's the better place for you to structure your thought process before you dig into the weeds. Because a lot of people go, oh my goodness, I got offered an opportunity. I got to run with this. And I would say most of the time when you get spammed DLA contracts from a bunch of random people you've never spoke to, it's because they're very difficult parts and unattractive quantities, and they're not worth most people's time. And so it's not that you're super lucky, it's that DLA and DoD are trying to satisfy that requirement as any means possible. So be skeptical about the deal making sense to you. If you're looking at procurement history and you see somebody's recent purchased award says first article waived in section B on the second page of that solicit or that award, and it's been less than 3 years since that award, that means if you're competing against that supplier, they're going straight to production. they have a matured process, and they're already ROI positive on all their NRE. And so it begs the question of when and how should I choose to compete somebody whose first article waived and has made this part before if I can't buy the tooling and start in a similar place? Generally speaking, a first article waiver is good for 3 years. And so you're going to want a gap of 3 years. You're going to want no waivers in recent procurement history, or you're going to want to see a quantity spike jump so much higher than the recent procurement history that it gives you the opportunity to use economies at scale to bring your unit price down and compete against somebody. You'll find a lot of the time people have won the same part for 15, 20 years, and frankly, they start to price creep because no one's competing against them. So every once in a while, and if you start to understand serviceability of weapon systems, generally in 5 to 10 year increments, you can predict when the big quantity spikes are going to occur. And if you're aware of those national stock numbers, when that service life hits, you might see a quantity, a contract that's usually in 20-piece lots go to 400 pieces. And it only happens every 5 to 10 years. And those are your opportunities to turn the tides. And otherwise, you may find a lot of the time in the onesie twosie arena, it's very difficult to compete with somebody who's already making this part. So you're looking for apples to apples competition as much as humanly possible. One note that was asked earlier about seeing if people were canceled. You can see that, but it takes 90 days after the action was submitted. If you take the NSN and you go into the awards tab of DIBS, you pop in that NSN, it will populate all the modifications to the contract. And if you read those documents, which are downloadable, you can see if somebody was canceled for cause. You can see if somebody had a price increase. You can see if somebody extended their delivery. A lot of the time it's boilerplate FAR clauses that were not put in the original award document, but that's a very good tool to determine, man, that price was crazy low. And then you find out later they never delivered it. And so sometimes the procurement history will kind of shake you up a little bit. You know, if somebody's delivered a price that seems unfathomably cheap, maybe hang on to that NSN and wait a little bit. See if they actually deliver. I would say here and there, I see people use parts as a loss leader, but most small businesses aren't doing loss leaders. We need to cover our base. We need to make profit to keep the lights on and keep everybody moving forward. So make sure you use as much data as possible to get the story of the opportunity, the story of the market before you really dig into the drawings. The way we look at deals is we try to poke as many holes as in it humanly possible before I even touch the drawings, because often once you have all the data available, it's fairly linear. I mean, it's conditional based on your price and lead, but you kind of know where you need to be at a glance before you even get into the drawings. And so you could quickly determine a ROM after looking at the drawings with that type of data and be like, oh my God, this part's amazing. We could crush it. Oh, yeah. But if you look at the procurement history, you're like, I can't make it for that. Well, then it doesn't matter, right? And so you want to be able to, as quickly as possible, find out if it's not only profitable, but you can be competitive and you can understand and work together all the requirements. I think that's really where most of the rubber hits the road. And obviously, it takes a lot of expertise and experience and effort. But the better you are at saying no, the more time and effort and energy you have to find the right deals to say yes. And I think the biggest thing that destroys people's morale is they pick the worst deals that aren't going to be profitable, that are going to be challenging, that aren't worth a ton of money, they're not repeatable, and maybe they don't even win any of them. And it just really ruins the interest. So be strategic, be skeptical, make sure these things make sense to you. I think the other challenge I often see with casting and forging houses is that you're generally not a tier one supplier in the private industry. Someone else is a prime. Someone's machining your parts. Someone's assembling your parts. So you're not used to the flow downs of the government regulations. You may not necessarily know the FAR and the DFAR regulations. This may look like word salad to you or just some crazy acronyms. So you want to look at it like, how can I either adopt this language or how can I work with somebody who can simplify this language with me? Sheila and I have been working on a tool for the last few years that I'll show towards the end that is going to take on a lot of what I'm describing right now. But it's important for casting and forging houses to understand DLA requirements in the way that they see them. I mean, I think Apex and Sheila will be able to give wonderful breakdowns of what they work, how they understand them, what it means in practice. But as a supplier, how does that change your cost model? How are you going to structure your bid against your competitor? And you really want to start to master those requirements so you can apply nuance and understanding the market of how it really can be utilized in your favor or against you. Feel free to ask questions at any time if anything pops up. I would say when I'm considering opportunities and I'm trying to poke holes in why should I bid this and why should I not, I kind of bucket it into two segments, like what's going to happen pre-award, meaning right before I submit my bid. What is all the stuff I should be running through my head? And then post-award, what are the things that I need to know that are going to occur via this contract, whether well articulated in the contract record itself versus the implied processes, either notified by your DCMA QAR? Do you have to submit a document the second you receive this award within 14 days and share GDP and get the DLA to give buy-in so that you can go and schedule an inspection? Is that required? Because it isn't a lot of contracts that require first article testing. Do you understand how to create an invoice in WAF and pull which document file from your contract award so that you can submit an invoice? Do you know how to do this? Do you know where the right DODACs are? Do you know how to schedule shipping in VSM? Do you know how to send receiving reports? All of those things, I think, put people down to the edge of their line and they feel like they're under the gun to get it going. And you should be calculating all of these things up front. When I'm looking at it from a pre-award perspective, one, is my entire supply chain, if this requirement requires export control, are they JCP? I think you'll find a lot of time with coating suppliers or some outside process suppliers who may do mag particle tests or penetrant or any type of NDT, is they're rarely JCP approved. And it's because they're not really built into these supply chains. And just be mindful that you don't necessarily need to send them technical data in order for them to do those types of services to your part. You can just describe the part in its detail. You can take a isometric image or draw your own image. You don't need to give them the whole tech package for them to see those. And so just keep that in mind, that you see a lot of support service providers, rarely JCP, because they're never going to bid a government contract. And that's not what they're set up to do. They're there to help you get through the things that you don't focus on because you can't do it as well. So you work with people who specialize in specific domains that support these types of parts. So know that that avenue is there for you. But if anyone's going to receive these drawings, best believe they're export controlled. So they should have ITAR. They should have a DD2345, which is your JCP, and they should have an EJCP in order to receive any of that tech data. Like I kind of talked about with first article waivers and approvals, who are you competing against? How much of a leg up do they have on you? Is there an opportunity for you to compete apples to apples? Is there a way you can find an edge? If not, it's difficult to win. You want to be very selective. When I'm looking at tech data packages for casted and forged items, I think one problem is that a lot of the weapon systems that these were made on are like 50 to 70 years old. And so some of these drawings look rough. You're rarely going to find CAD models that come with any of these prints. And so generally you're quoting off a 2D print, and that print might be 40 years old. And some of those specifications may be 40 years old. It's on you to do rev control. You will see what the current rev is listed on that drawing, but that spec for that material may be dated. And you need to bring it up to the current world, which you want to, because that's the parts you're making are in the current world. So know if you see a spec that has been obsoleted or superseded by something else, it's not the end of the world. It's a good thing. Just know that depending on your DCMA QAR, your quality assurance rep, who's going to do your inspection of parts when you're ready to ship, depending on what type of person they are, they may have a problem with that, they may not. And so you need to kind of take a shorthanded list of what theoretical things that would come up later that you have to deal with. Because if he goes, well, it says this spec, and you're like, well, it's 1982, like we're using the 2006 reference now. Doesn't matter, that's what it says on the drawing. Well, then you're going to either have to convince him to submit a CAR, or you're going to have to submit a PAR, post-award request, to amend or modify the contract to allow that spec or to allow you to use a current, newer spec. So bear in mind that this market is complex, it's goofy, it's challenging, and you need to understand nuance to provide as many safeguards as possible for you to manage this type of workload. Is anybody hung up on this part?
Yeah, Mike, I just want to let you know we have about 3 more minutes for today's session. So I didn't know if Sheila also wanted to come on and add any last remarks before we close out for the day. Again, we will get this recording to everyone. If you have any last minute questions, please feel free to put those in the chat. Sheila, I'm not sure if you're still on there and if you'd like to.
I am. I want to thank everyone. I want you to understand that we are here to provide service. This portal is amazing. We have a lot of information to provide to support industry in this area. Anything that we can do, feel free to reach out through Robin or to us. Let us know. We'd be happy to give more training, Robin. We're really excited. There's a lot of information that we can provide, and let us know how we can help.
Thank you, Sheila. And thank you, Mike, so much. I apologize for that.
No problem.
We do have like a hard stop at 11:30, but I wanted to make sure that everyone who had a question got their questions in the chat or in the, from what I understand, there must be some problems. Some people don't have access to the Q&A or did not have access to the chat. I'm not sure exactly what happened there. And I think that has something to do with maybe your restrictions on your end, but I got a pop-up message telling me that. Again, we are going to have this event again on a nationwide platform with my other colleagues across the nation at the other Apex accelerators, and we are going to also invite DLA, Brian Egbert, to be a part of this, and so we can get a lot more information, because we really are here to make sure our casting, forging, and machining companies are getting a piece of the pie. And we're here supporting our warfighters. So
absolutely.
Okay. I did get a message from Matt saying that the DLA, the DIBS website has been down, and it's been down for a little while. Sheila, I don't know if you would have anything about that. If there's
I'm not aware that it's down.
Dibs is up right now.
Okay.
I will tell you, government systems go down all the time. It's very common, but it's short. C folders will not work for an hour. Dibs won't. Pi won't. Very normal.
Okay.
This is DoD contracting.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. So maybe Matt, try again. I know you said you did a Google search and it appeared to be down nationwide. I will double check on that for you. And then if it's not working on my end, I will see if I can reach out to our colleagues at DLA to see what we can do and find out what's going on.
Clear your cache, clear your cookies, and change browsers.
Sounds great. Thank you for that. Was great.
Robin, I was just able to get in.
Okay. All right. Sounds great. Anyone else have any great questions or anything you'd like to add at the end? Again, if you have questions or some of this information came out today where you need some help with certain things, please feel free to reach out to your Apex Accelerator. I will get the slides out and the recordings out as soon as possible to everyone. Mike, if you could send me your slides, that'd be great. You will have those slides on the live or the recording, so as well. So I appreciate Sheila, Michael, thank you. Thank you all to my Apex Accelerator colleagues again. And I hope this day was beneficial for you all. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Robin. Appreciate it. Thank you, everyone.
Have a great rest of your day.
Bye-bye.